Hi, this is Jonah Wish from the National Cybersecurity Center talking about the CIS Controls data protection and data recovery. Brief explainer of the controls and the implementation groups. So you have implementation group 1, 2, and 3. Within each control, you have a certain number of safeguards. As you can see here, control number 3 has 14. Control number 11 has 5 safeguards. Within each of those controls, the safeguards are broken up by level of priority. So implementation group 1 are those safeguards you should tackle first, then go to 2, then go to 3. Start by talking about data protection. So data protection is develop processes and technical controls to identify, classify, securely handle, retain, and dispose of data. So making sure that what you want to happen to the data happens. So why is that critical? So back a while ago, a long time ago, there was not this tendency for data to start to spread out across and outside of an enterprise's border, especially with work from home. That's happening more and more nowadays. So you have that element to take into account where somebody is using their personal computer for work responsibilities, downloads a file to their desktop instead of the cloud service that they're supposed to be using, and all of a sudden that data is outside of an enterprise's control, outside of their border. These different controls can help with data loss, and in addition, making sure that only the people that have access to it are seeing that data in the clear or in clear text. So implementation group 1, you have a couple of controls here. You need to have a process. So this is more related to policy and written policy than things in action. So having a process, having an inventory, and then access control lists for different types of data, retention, disposing, 2 related controls there as 3.4 and 3.5. And then encrypting data on end user devices so that if someone were to gain access, they're not seeing those files in the clear, they are encrypted in some way. IG2, we're looking at a data classification scheme. So if you have different levels of access within your organization, or some things that everyone in the organization can see, some things you only want managers to see, something you only want executive to see, and then some things you only want different departments to see. That would go into a data classification scheme, data flows, different types of encryption policies here, all in implementation group number 2. And then implementation group number 3, a data loss prevention solution. So this is preventing exfiltration of sensitive data using some type of tool. Exfiltration when it is not not authorized, and especially when with your most sensitive data, you want to know who is accessing it and when, so that you can have a log for that in case there's a need for maybe incident response. You want to see and address a root cause or see what an attacker was going after. So key concepts there throughout the entire life cycle of data as a whole, managing the data, having a process if there is a data breach, having some type of sensitivity or classification scheme, encrypting data at rest, in transit, on end user devices, and then having some type of data loss prevention tool. Moving on to data recovery, control number 11, establish and maintain data recovery practices sufficient to restore in-scope enterprise assets to pre-incident and trusted state. So this control has to do with what happens after you have lost data for some reason. This is something that can happen for many different reasons. But a lot of times for business continuity, it's more important that you have the data and have the availability to utilize it and access it. Think about if you're in the sales division of an enterprise, or you're in some type of operations facility within a power plant, or the operations division within a power plant, and you need to access the controls data on what's happening on an ICS system. Then having the data to be able to make sure that everything is running and running smoothly and you can continue operations might be more important than making sure that no one else can see it or has it. Obviously, both are important, but if you need to keep doing business, you need to have the data and have that availability. So being able to back up the data, if someone encrypts it as ransomware or ransomware attack, being able to put in a recent backup is going to be key for you, so that you have that availability, even though during a ransomware attack someone else technically has access to the data. So implementation group number 1, having a process, having a policy. What are you going to do when it happens, and how often are you going to update it? Performing those automated backups, whether it's weekly or more frequently. More sensitive data, you're going to want to back up more frequently. And then different policies here about protecting recovered data and what to do in the instance of a need to recover data. Implementation group 2, making sure that the recovery data that you have is not also infected. That happens with ransomware or malware, where they will encrypt your data, find your backups, and infect those as well, so that when you reload your backup, you're just reinfecting your system with the malware again. So making sure that your backups also are under control. So key concepts with this, you want to have a process and a policy, know what you're going to do, execute it at a good frequency, and make sure that you know that your backups are backups and not just malware is also infected with malware.